Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today we're looking at 6 of the most valuable Washington $quarter coins, featuring rare dates, mint marks, varieties, and exceptional conditions. Washington quarters have been produced since 1932, and some rare examples have reached astonishing auction prices. The 1932D is one of the biggest key dates, with only 436,800 minted, while the 1932S had just 408,000 pieces produced. Other major rarities include the 1934 and 1937 double die varieties, the 1950D/S over mint mark, and the famous 1964D in extremely high grade. Depending on rarity, condition, and certification, these coins can sell for thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. NGC records include a 1932D at $89,125, a 1964D at $48,300, and a 1932S at $38,400. Collectors should carefully check the date, mint mark, double details, condition, and possible errors, and consider professional authentication before assuming a coin is rare. So before spending that old quarter, take a close look. It could be a valuable piece of American history hiding in plain sight. So let's get started. First up, coin number 1, the United States Washington $quarter from 1998 with a D mint mark. This coin is in black, circulated condition, showing the natural wear and darker appearance that can develop after years of handling. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary 25-cent coin, but collectors know that certain Washington quarters can become more interesting when they contain unusual errors, varieties, or exceptional grades. So, could your 1998 D quarter be worth more than its face value? Let's examine the coin and find out what really determines its value. The Washington quarter was introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design became a permanent part of U.S. coinage in 1934 and has continued through different compositions and designs. The 1998 D Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark on the obverse beneath the date. By 1998, the quarter was made from a copper-nickel outer layer bonded to a copper core, rather than the silver composition used by quarters produced before 1965. On the obverse, the coin features the familiar portrait of George Washington, with Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1998 surrounding the design. The small d beneath the date indicates production at the Denver Mint. The reverse shows an eagle with outstretched wings surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and $quarter. Because this particular coin is circulated and appears dark or black, much of the original mint luster may have disappeared, and surface marks or discoloration can affect its value. It is important to understand that a normal 1998 D Washington quarter is not considered an extremely rare coin. Large numbers were produced, so simply having a D mint mark does not make the coin valuable. However, collectors become much more interested when a 1998 D quarter has a genuine minting error, an unusual variety, or an exceptionally high grade. Coins with dramatic errors or rare characteristics can attract strong competition in the auction market, while ordinary circulated examples generally have little premium over face value. For a normal circulated 1998 D Washington quarter, the market value is usually around its face value of 25 cents, although particularly attractive examples may sell for somewhat more. The large dollar auction prices sometimes mentioned online generally apply to extraordinary certified specimens, rare errors, or other unusual examples, not an ordinary circulated quarter. If a 1998 D quarter has a major authenticated error or an exceptional certified grade, its value can potentially rise into much higher dollar amounts. Always verify claimed prices using actual documented sales rather than unverified online listings. If you have a 1998 D Washington quarter, examine it carefully under good lighting. Check the date and mint mark, then inspect the lettering, rim, portrait, eagle, and overall surface for unusual doubling, off-center striking, missing design elements, or other possible mint errors. Do not clean or polish the coin, because cleaning can damage its collector value. If you believe you have an unusual specimen, compare it with trusted coin references, and consider having it evaluated by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. So, is your 1998 D Washington quarter a hidden treasure? Most circulated examples are common and worth close to 25 cents, but that doesn't mean you should ignore them. The exciting part of coin collecting is discovering an unusual error, variety, or exceptionally preserved example hiding in everyday change. Before spending that 1998 D quarter, take a closer look. You never know what you might find. Next, coin the 1995 D Washington quarter, a United States $quarter coin carrying the D mint mark for the Denver Mint. This particular example is described as being in ugly, heavily circulated condition. While ordinary 1995 D quarters are generally common, collectors should still inspect them carefully because unusual errors, varieties, or exceptionally rare conditions can sometimes make an otherwise ordinary-looking coin much more interesting and valuable. The Washington quarter was introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington, the first president of the United States. The design continued in the modern copper nickel-clad era, and the 1995 D quarter was struck at the Denver Mint. The D beneath the portrait identifies Denver as the minting facility. Millions of Washington quarters were produced during this period, which means the normal 1995 D issue is not considered a major rarity. However, individual coins with genuine minting errors can attract much stronger collector attention. On the obverse, the coin displays George Washington's portrait along with the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date 1995. The small D mint mark appears below the portrait. On the reverse is the familiar American eagle design, surrounded by United States of America, E pluribus unum, and $quarter. Because this example is in ugly or heavily worn condition, much of the original detail may be difficult to see. Even so, the coin should be examined for unusual doubling, off-center striking, die damage, missing design elements, or other authentic minting abnormalities. The important point for collectors is that a normal circulated 1995 D Washington quarter is not automatically rare simply because it is old or has a D mint mark. Its value generally comes from its condition, recognized varieties, or genuine mint errors. A heavily worn example would normally attract limited premium interest unless it contains a significant and authenticated error. If a rare error is discovered, however, collectors can become highly interested, and competitive bidding at auction may push the price substantially higher than face value. For a standard circulated 1995 D Washington quarter in ugly condition, the market value is generally around its 25-cent face value, with little or no premium in ordinary circumstances. Higher prices are possible for coins with major authenticated errors or exceptional grades, but those are specific cases rather than the normal value of this issue. Be cautious of internet claims saying every 1995 D quarter is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Before believing a large valuation, check professional grading information and documented auction sales for the exact error, variety, and condition. If you have a 1995 D quarter, do not clean or polish it, even if it looks dirty or ugly. Cleaning can permanently damage the surface and reduce collector appeal. Instead, examine the coin under good lighting and compare both sides with a normal 1995 D quarter. Pay special attention to the date, mint mark, lettering, rim, edge, eagle, and areas where doubling or striking abnormalities might appear. If you discover something genuinely unusual, have it evaluated by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service before assuming it is valuable. The 1995 D Washington quarter is an interesting coin to check, but an ordinary ugly circulated example is not normally a rare or high-dollar coin. The real excitement comes from finding a genuine mint error, unusual variety, or exceptionally high-grade specimen. So before spending that quarter, take a close look at it. You never know what unusual detail might be hiding in plain sight. Next, coin the 1981 D Washington $quarter, a United States 25-cent coin carrying the D mint mark from the Denver Mint. This particular example is in bad, heavily circulated condition, but that doesn't mean it should be ignored. Some collectors enjoy searching ordinary-looking coins for errors, varieties, unusual strikes, and other features that can make a coin more interesting and potentially more valuable. The Washington quarter was introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington, the first president of the United States. The original design was created by John Flanagan and remained the basic design for decades. The 1981 D quarter was struck at the Denver Mint during an era when large numbers of Washington quarters were produced for everyday commerce. Because of its relatively large production, a normal circulated 1981 D quarter is generally considered a common coin rather than a major rarity. The obverse shows a portrait of George Washington with the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1981. On the reverse, you can see the American eagle surrounded by United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. The small D mint mark indicates production at the Denver Mint. Since this example is in bad condition, much of the original detail may be worn away, but collectors should still inspect the date, mint mark, lettering, and surfaces for anything unusual. A normal 1981 D Washington quarter in heavily circulated condition is not considered a rare coin. However, rarity can come from a genuine mint error, unusual die variety, or an exceptionally high-grade example. Collectors are particularly interested when a coin has a documented variety or error that is scarce in the marketplace. That is why it is important not to judge the value of this coin simply from its year and D mint mark. The specific characteristics of the individual coin matter. In bad circulated condition, a standard 1981 D Washington quarter generally has little premium over its 25-cent face value. It is not realistic to assume that an ordinary worn example is automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Higher auction prices are possible for authenticated errors, rare varieties, or exceptional certified specimens, but those are special cases. If you see online claims that every 1981 D quarter is worth a huge amount, be cautious and check actual completed auction sales rather than relying on asking prices. If you discover a 1981 D quarter, examine it carefully under good lighting. Check the mint mark, date, lettering, eagle, and rim for unusual doubling, off-center striking, die cracks, missing details, or other minting abnormalities. Do not clean or polish the coin, especially if you suspect it could be collectible, because cleaning can damage its numismatic value. If you find something genuinely unusual, compare it with trusted references and consider having the coin examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. The 1981 D Washington quarter is an interesting coin to search for, but a normal example in bad circulated condition is generally common and inexpensive. The real excitement comes from finding a legitimate error, rare variety, or unusually valuable condition. So before spending that old quarter, take a close look at the date and the D mint mark. You never know what unusual feature might be hiding on an ordinary-looking coin. Next coin, the United States Washington quarter dollar dated 1965, with no mint mark in circulated condition. This is an especially interesting year because 1965 was the first year the U.S. Mint changed the quarter from a 90% silver composition to a copper-nickel-clad composition. While a normal circulated 1965 quarter is generally common, certain errors, varieties, and exceptionally well-preserved examples can attract serious collector attention and potentially bring much higher prices at auction. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington. In 1965, the United States was facing a major shortage of silver, and the mint began producing quarters using a copper-nickel-clad composition instead of the traditional 90% silver composition. The 1965 quarter is therefore an important transitional coin in American numismatic history. The Philadelphia Mint produced 1965 quarters without a mint mark, so the absence of a mint mark on this date is completely normal and does not, by itself, make the coin rare. The obverse features George Washington facing left, with the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1965. The reverse shows an American eagle with outstretched wings surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, quarter dollar, and 25 cents. Unlike earlier silver Washington quarters, the standard 1965 quarter is composed of a copper core bonded between copper-nickel outer layers. On a circulated example, normal wear, scratches, stains, and loss of detail can be expected. A standard circulated 1965 Washington quarter without a mint mark is not considered a rare coin simply because it lacks a mint mark. However, collectors pay close attention to 1965 quarters because the date is associated with the beginning of the clad era. The real excitement comes from genuine mint errors, unusual varieties, wrong planchet errors, strong doubling, or exceptionally high-grade examples. Coins with documented and authenticated errors can attract substantial attention in the auction market, but those are special exceptions rather than the value of an ordinary circulated coin. Most circulated 1965 Washington quarters without a mint mark are worth around face value, with their exact value depending on condition and collector demand. High-grade certified examples can command premiums, while major authenticated errors can be worth hundreds or potentially much more depending on rarity and auction demand. It is important to remember that online claims of enormous values for ordinary 1965 quarters are often exaggerated. The strongest evidence of value comes from professional grading and documented sales of comparable coins at reputable auctions. If you discover a 1965 quarter, do not clean or polish it, because cleaning can damage its collector value. Examine the date carefully and inspect the coin's edge for the copper core that identifies the standard clad composition. Look closely for unusual doubling, missing design elements, off-center strikes, unusual metal composition, or other genuine minting abnormalities. If something appears unusual, compare it with trusted numismatic references and consider having the coin examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. The 1965 Washington quarter without a mint mark is an important coin in U.S. history because it marks the beginning of the modern clad quarter era. Most circulated examples are common and are not worth thousands of dollars. But unusual errors, varieties, and exceptional grades can change the story dramatically. So before spending that old quarter, take a closer look. You may discover a fascinating piece of American coinage history. Next coin, the United States Washington quarter from 1967. A $quarter coin with no mint mark and in heavily worn, or black, circulated condition. Some collectors search their old quarters hoping to discover a rare variety, minting error, or unusually valuable example. But is a normal 1967 quarter really worth big money? Let's examine its history, features, rarity, and potential auction value. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The familiar design was created by sculptor John Flanagan. The 1967 quarter belongs to the special period when the United States Mint produced quarters without mint marks. During the 1965 to 1967 period, mint marks were intentionally omitted from circulating coins, so the absence of a mint mark on a 1967 Washington quarter is normal. The coin was also part of the silver-clad era, containing 40% silver rather than the traditional 90% silver composition used on earlier quarters. On the obverse, the coin features a portrait of George Washington facing left, along with the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1967. The reverse shows a bald eagle with wings spread, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and $quarter. A particularly important feature is its 40% silver composition, which gives the coin additional value beyond its 5 cent. No, its face value of 25 cents. Because this example is heavily circulated and darkened, much of the original detail may have been worn away. High demand. The 1967 Washington quarter is historically interesting, but the standard no mint mark issue is not considered extremely rare. Millions were struck and many examples survive today. However, collectors are interested in high-grade specimens, dramatic mint errors, and recognized varieties. A heavily circulated or blackened example generally has much less collector value than a professionally graded coin in excellent condition. The important point is that no mint mark alone does not make a 1967 quarter rare. In circulated condition, a normal 1967 Washington quarter is generally valued based on its silver content and condition, rather than being a huge rarity. Its market value can fluctuate with silver prices, while exceptionally preserved certified coins or genuine major errors can sell for substantially more at auction. Some outstanding examples have brought hundreds or even more in specialized auction markets, but those prices should not be used as the value of an ordinary heavily circulated coin. Always check recent verified sales before assuming a dramatic value. If you discover a 1967 quarter, do not clean or polish it. Examine the date, lettering, eagle, rim, and surfaces carefully under good lighting. Look for unusual doubling, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die breaks, or other genuine mint errors. Because 1967 quarters contain silver, also consider their precious metal value. If your coin appears unusual or unusually well preserved, have it examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. The 1967 Washington quarter with no mint mark is an important piece of American coinage history, especially because it comes from the era of 40% silver quarters and intentionally missing mint marks. A heavily circulated example is unlikely to be worth thousands simply because it has no mint mark, but unusual errors and exceptional grades can make certain examples much more valuable. So check your old quarters carefully. You never know what interesting piece of history may be hiding in your collection. Last and final coin, the United States Washington quarter from 1968. A fascinating 25-cent coin that can attract attention from collectors. This example has no mint mark and is described as being in fine condition. But is a 1968 Washington quarter without a mint mark actually rare? And could it be worth big money at auction? In this video, we'll explore its history, important features, rarity, market value, and what collectors should look for before selling one. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington, the first president of the United States. The original design was created by sculptor John Flanagan and remained on the quarter for decades. The 1968 quarter belongs to an important period in U.S. coinage history because the mint was transitioning from the traditional silver composition to the new copper-nickel clad composition. In 1968, Philadelphia did not strike regular Washington quarters, so a genuine 1968 quarter without a mint mark is unusual and deserves careful examination. Most regular 1968 quarters were produced at Denver and carried a D mint mark, while San Francisco produced proof examples with an S mint mark. On the obverse, the coin displays a portrait of George Washington facing left, with the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," along with the date 1968. The reverse features the American eagle, surrounded by United States of America, quarter dollar, and E pluribus unum. A genuine 1968 quarter without a mint mark can attract special attention because the missing mint mark is not the normal production characteristic for a standard 1968 Philadelphia business strike quarter. The coin's fine condition means that it has noticeable circulation wear, but major design elements should still remain visible. This is where collectors need to be especially careful. A 1968 quarter without a mint mark is not automatically a rare, high-dollar coin. Because Philadelphia did not strike regular quarters that year, a supposed 1968 no mint mark quarter should be authenticated carefully. It could potentially involve a minting error, altered mint mark, or another unusual circumstance. Genuine mint errors and varieties can attract strong collector interest, especially when certified by a respected grading service. The rarity must be proven, rather than assumed from the missing D or S. If you discover a 1968 Washington quarter without a mint mark, do not clean, polish, scratch, or alter it. Examine the date and mint mark area carefully under magnification and compare the coin with authenticated examples. Pay attention to the edge, surface, lettering, and overall appearance because altered coins can sometimes be mistaken for genuine errors. If your coin appears unusual, take it to a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service for authentication. Remember, condition matters, but authenticity and the exact error or variety matter even more. So, if you have a 1968 Washington quarter without a mint mark, don't immediately assume it is worth a fortune, but definitely take a closer look. The absence of a mint mark is particularly interesting for this date because regular Philadelphia quarters were not produced in 1968. If your coin turns out to be a genuine mint error or another documented rarity, it could become a much more interesting piece for collectors and potentially command a strong auction price. Check your old quarters carefully, learn the real facts, and you might discover a fascinating piece of American coin history. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more rare coin discoveries and valuable coin videos. See you in the next video.